it's a valid thing to say, a common kind of objection to, what if God, it does exist, then why hasn't he made it obvious to everybody in the world? So just do you want to lead us through sort of your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of those things that we really, as Christians, should be open and honest about, that clearly the existence of God is less obvious than it could be. The existence of God is not obvious in the same way, for example, the existence of the sun is obvious to us. People don't quibble over the existence of the sun, for example. And clearly there are lots of different ways in which God could have made his existence more obvious than it is. So, to pluck an example out of the air, God could have written a message in the sky to say, yes, I exist and you should believe in me and, become a Christian. That hasn't happened, even though God can do anything, and so presumably could have done it if he'd wanted to. So there must be a reason, therefore, if God exists, why he hasn't chosen to do those things, why he's chosen to sort of remain sort of partially hidden. And the explanation I give in the book is to do with morally significant choices. And what I mean by morally significant choice is a choice basically that can either be good or bad. So if you think about, feeding a starving person, if I choose to feed that starving person, that choice is praiseworthy. It's good. It has a moral significance to it. Whereas if I, for example, chose not to, well, that might be bad and it might be blameworthy again. So it's a morally significant choice because it could either be good or be bad. And the world is a much better place for having morally significant choices because it allows for good things like compassion and generosity and sort of all the sort of beautiful, praiseworthy things that people do. But to allow for actual morally significant choices depends upon my freedom. Unless I am free, I can't make those choices. So take, for example, again, thinking about this starving man. If I feed that starving person, that seems praiseworthy, that seems good. People would say that I've done a good thing. But imagine that somebody had paid me to do it. Well, suddenly it doesn't seem very good at all. In fact, it might seem rather cynical. Similarly, if I steal some food, well, that might seem greedy, that might seem bad. But if I was stealing that food to feed my starving family, well, that maybe seems less bad, right? You might be mitigating circumstances. So the level to which I am compelled or coerced reduces my freedom and therefore reduces the moral significance of my choices. So then when we bring that back to the question of God, well, if God's existence was obvious, then that level of compulsion or that level of coercion suddenly becomes sort of dialed up to an infinite amount, right? If the infinite God, who is perfectly good, who knows my future, who knows all my thoughts, my actions, and might ultimately have reward or punishment in mind for my actions. If his existence is beyond my doubt, then my freedom to make choices is effectively eliminated. I'm no longer generous for my own sake. I'm generous for the sake of reward or for fear of punishment. God is, my actions are no longer free to a greater or lesser extent. They are compelled and coerced by the ever-present sort of overseer in the sky, who's almost forcing me to act in certain ways. So if God wants there to be morally significant choices, and I think there's good reasons to think that's something that God would want, because the world is a much better place for those, then it seems reasonable to think that God should want to keep his existence less than obvious, partially hidden, to allow for that freedom to operate, so that then people can go ahead and either act in generous, compassionate, loving ways, or in mean, greedy, petty ways.